Hi everybody, Tim Hughes here. I'm the CEO and co-founder of DLA Ignite. Today with me I've got Peter, and Peter and I we're going to talk about the people-powered business. So before we get into that, Peter, can you just tell everybody where they can get hold of you?
Yes, of course. And thanks for having me on the show, Tim. The easiest place to find me is on my website, which is brightsider.se, or LinkedIn, where I won't try to spell the name, but it's somewhere in the text around this cast.
Oh right, okay, yes.
It's unique. There's only one with that name in the entire world.
So pronounce it for us, Peter.
Well, I pronounce it Bjellerup, but I'm pretty used to being called Mr. Peter, and you can see why.
And it's Bjellerup.
Exactly. Perfect. Perfect spelling.
Good.
You pass.
Thank you.
Good grade.
Thank you. I needed to write. I'm sure I would have spelled it wrong. So you got into social media quite early on in terms of the social media world, didn't you? You got into Twitter quite early, and you got into the Swedish version of Facebook.
Yes, there was a precursor. That's the name, isn't it?
Yes.
Of Facebook, which was called Lunar Storm. It was only to Sweden, local to Sweden, and it was very much a kids thing. But I was in a web marketing role at the time, and I realized that this was a budding marketing medium. So I thought I had to go get in there, but it was basically only kids and dirty old men on that site. So I had to get a name or use an alias that sort of showed that I was neither. So I took the Swedish expression for embarrassing dad.
Right.
And now I actually own that domain, but I really haven't found out what to do with it.
Okay. Well, maybe someone will contact you and say that.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
And then I was sort of among the first something% on Twitter, less than the first 1%.
Right.
And in those days, it was still rather naive and nice and so on, not as full of acid as it is today.
Yes. Yeah, I've been on Twitter for 11 years, and it's changed an awful lot.
Yeah,
some for the better and some for the worse. But
yes,
you also then got, because you were an IBMer.
Yes, from 2005.
Yeah, and so you were involved with IBM Connections, which I believe is an internal, what I would call an enterprise social network.
That is what I would call it too. Yes.
Yeah. So it's a bit like what was so Yammer and Slack and things like as they are now.
Yes. If you take Yammer and WordPress and Dropbox and quite a few of the others, and you put them together, you got this thing called Connections, which IBM divested in 2019 and sold it to HCL, where it's living on and actually is doing very well as HCL Connections these days.
Right. Okay.
And it is. I realize I haven't, since I left IBM at the same time, I have come to realize that was actually what kept my engagement and inspiration going for quite a long time at IBM. Yeah. It was this possibility of interacting and learning and getting inspired by and inspiring with people all over the world. This water cooler thing, I don't understand it, because why limit yourself to thinking of one water cooler in one office on one floor when you have the whole world?
Isn't it? And I was involved. I did an awful lot of work. I worked for a very inspirational VP who was very pro-social and wanted to experiment. And we had something internally. I said to you before we came on that Oracle used to build their own stuff. So they built their own internal social network. But it was just, we did some amazing things with it. But we're not here to talk about me. They're here to talk about you. So this whole thing about IBM Connections and social, you got to understand the fact that you make all these connections and connecting employees created an amazing platform for collaboration.
Yes, collaboration, but beyond collaboration, really, because you got all this into knowledge sharing of ideas, of knowledge accidents, and ideas colliding and merging into new, better ones, and people developing things. It was just amazing. The way that people could get together. You could find anybody. I mean, IBM is a pretty big company.
Yeah.
And of course, that made it even better. But this works in a smaller context too. But you could always find somebody who was interested in the same nerdy thing as you somewhere. And we talked about Twitter before, and also Facebook and all the others. On the public side, we talk about these filter bubbles as a negative. The thing that the more you sort of read and like and comment about one thing, the more you get. Well, in the public domain, that creates echo chambers, which isn't good. But within a company, inside the firewall, it's actually fantastic, because since it works the same way, because that means that you come to find other people a new knowledge about something that you're interested in. So instead of everybody throwing all these corporate emails and newsletters at you, you can actually you are with every single click you do, you're refining your filter, the filter of what you want to read about. Yeah, so it was amazing.
And I think if you have a growth mindset and believe that everybody that you meet can actually teach you something. Yeah. And I remember when I first joined my previous company, there was very much a knowledge is power. If I know something and you don't, then you'll be fired and I won't be. And then I went and worked for a team where actually they shared stuff, and I sat there and remember going like, why would you do that? And then I kept watching, and they'd go, you want this? Yeah. And then actually what happened was that these people were seen as helpful, and they were becoming famous internally because they were helpful.
Yeah.
And I thought, hey, this is a really good idea. I'm going to start doing this. I did.
Yeah.
And then people would come to you and say, can you help me?
Yeah.
And then you realize that actually I'm going to keep my job because everyone thinks Tim's really helpful.
Yeah. I perfectly subscribe to this. I mean, on the corporate side, on the marketing side, this is exactly the same recipe as what you call content marketing. You hint at what you know, and people come to want more. It's exactly the same thing. I used it. I was an evangelist internally about this, and talked about personal branding online. And it really was like, if I used to say that to build your brand online in this context, you need to be known for being really good at something in demand.
Yeah. And
these days, I would like to add a fourth one, which is, and also be known for being a fairly nice person.
Yes.
But being bloody good at something, even if it is in demand, if nobody knows about it, it won't help you.
Yeah.
So people used knowledge is power. Yeah, I used to say, to be clear, I used to say hinted knowledge is power, which is passé. Today is shared knowledge gives influence.
Yeah.
And the former CEO of IBM said it very well. I think it's some 10 years ago. She said, your value to IBM is not what you know, it's what you share.
Yeah.
And I think that it was very wise. Then she got a little bit lost in chasing profit, but that's a different story.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, I agree. And I think that, when we're talking about the people powered business, that creating a culture where you share. We run our business on Slack, And you know what we're doing is that we're selling knowledge, and to have the most up-to-date knowledge is we all need it. So LinkedIn Stories basically starts, and what we're doing is that we're sharing with each other. I tried this on Stories and I got this, and someone else tried this and it didn't work. And so the other thing is also making sure that you're allowed to that you're able to say, I tried this and it didn't work.
Yes, I was just going to point that out actually, because it's with this sharing and openness should also come an awareness that nobody can be an expert at everything. Everybody can have expertise at something, even the smallest. I used to take the example of a guy who was sitting in my own office. He was a master at pivot tables in Excel, and I suck at it.
Yeah, I don't know.
And I mean, in this kind of environment, I could happen to find this guy, and he could help me. And you would never find that in some kind of official expertise classification, pivot tables in Excel. But there is one thing, you mentioned Slack, and nothing against Slack in particular, but there is one major difference between Slack and Zoom and all these others. It is that with those tools, you limit your collaboration to people you already know.
Yes.
With an enterprise social network, you go to the next level and explore and open up to the rest of the organization. I used to say that you produce, with the help of Slack, you produce efficiently for today.
Yes.
But with an enterprise social network, you invest effectively for the future.
Yeah, I was running a team across Europe for supply chain, and I ended up finding the people in South America. I actually tried to wangle a job over there as well, but I don't speak Spanish or Portuguese. But I remember I was on calls with the people I was running a team in Europe and basically supporting a team in South America because no one would help them. And in fact, I went out and found them, and so I totally agree with what you say.
Yeah, I mean, I had people contacting me from the US and UK, actually bypassing my peers there because I had become better known, and I ended up landing an 8-month gig in mainland China, which was extremely interesting learning.
Wow.
That project is sort of my claim to fame, I'd say, and that was landed through being my personal branding online internally.
So the world has changed through COVID. I think we're all pretty understand that. So what is it that organizations can be doing to basically get the energy of their employees? Because now, if you had 1,000 employees in one office, you now have 1,000 offices, and collaboration and innovation and all of these things are, normally you'd walk in the office and you'd sit down and say, let's go for coffee. Now you can't do that anymore. So what is it that people can do to actually harness the power of the people within a business?
Yeah, well, I'd like to challenge that a bit to start with.
Please do.
Because in an office, everybody sits and work with their own buddies, as I just talked about a Slack channel, for example. You go to the water cooler, but 9 out of the 10 people you meet there are the same as usually. So what you need to do is to open up in various ways. And of course, I don't expect everybody to rush away and buy the tools for an enterprise social network right now.
I use Slack for free.
Pardon?
I use Slack for free.
Ah, good. Yeah, but still, that doesn't go to that next level of openness. But I think there is also a lot to do with things like management. So
what can management be doing differently?
Well, they can lead rather than manage to start with. They can work with giving the employees. I'm looking for the word now. Let's see.
Trust.
Yes, and with trust, you become I'm looking for it. You get to decide yourselves. You can do things on your own.
Okay, being
empowered. Let's say that. It's not the right word I'm looking for. It's from motivational psychology. Autonomy. That's the word I'm looking for.
Oh yeah.
You get more autonomy. I mean, it's very simple. In a world of people working online in distributed teams, micromanagement doesn't work.
No.
You can't sort of lean over my shoulder here and check what I do. So you need to help your employees to become autonomically
yes,
motivated.
Yep.
By not telling them exactly what to do, tell them what the goals are, and let them find out how to reach them. Mm-hmm. Keep track, and then also help in various ways to build social cohesion. Mm-hmm. Have open, have coffee breaks together. Have a check-in in the morning. This still doesn't do the whole thing with the whole organization, but at least it gets the togetherness working in the team. So I've written quite a lot of that, but unfortunately it's all in Swedish, so I better start translate it and put it in my English-speaking blog, which is thesocialswede.com.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. There you can read a lot of stuff about enterprise social networks, but it's not completely fresh. I call it the splog, sporadic blog.
Okay. There is some research from McKinsey, which I think is from 2014, may even be before that, and I still think it's relevant today, which they reckon that using an enterprise social network increases the efficiency of an employees by 20 to 25%.
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure they're right.
Which means that you actually get 20% of your employees for free.
Yeah. There was also a very interesting article on the latest, the cover article in the latest issue of Harvard Business Review.
Right.
About work from anywhere. It's a Harvard professor. It is really interesting, and he also talks about the things that are needed for this to work.
Which are?
Well, one of them is this trust thing. Another thing is actually that to help the whole workforce to work remotely, everybody should work remotely. Because if you have the C-suite in a head office staying there, well, all the middle managers will sort of circle around hoping for some FaceTime, and suddenly you will have a click there, and then all the satellites out there.
Yep.
So therefore, send everybody out, and everybody work remote. And the interesting thing, which I was thinking of before, was that even if we work in an office, the teams don't sit together all the time. Maybe sometimes not everybody is there all the time. So if we work for remote work practices as default, it will work both when people actually are remote, but also when all or some are in the office. Right. If we do it the other way around, it will fall apart when we are apart.
Right.
So therefore, if we have remote first or remote as default, everything will be better wherever we work.
Right.
Because we're still apart, even we work apart, even if we're still in the same office.
And when you say we're better, can you define better?
Better is more effective.
Is that innovation? Is that?
That's why I use the word
culture. Is that
all of it?
Right.
That's why I use the word effective and not efficient. It's not about producing the same with less effort. It's about getting more out of what you have. Right. And that means innovation. It means more motivation. It means more inclusion. It means having better workforce and people growing and becoming more knowledgeable as well.
Because before we came on, we talked about travel, and we talked about the importance of travel, because it actually enables you to understand people better, people's circumstances. And I believe that social, internal and external, allows for greater inclusion, because you are talking to more people. I on Twitter, I met people and I've gone to see them in Seattle, in Denver, in all over the world, and everybody's different, but everybody's also the same.
Yeah, I often use exactly the same words.
And it's the same within a business context.
Yes,
you'll find there are people, tribes or communities or people with the same views of you as you, and you can build those and you can collaborate obviously for the benefit of the business.
But also we need to remember that we shouldn't always look for the people who are like us. I was asked by a gang of students, how can we broaden our mind and get to know better? And I said, well, go to TED and TED Talks and look at the list of speakers there, and go for everybody who doesn't look like you.
Yeah.
And that's a way to broaden your mind. I heard a wonderful quote yesterday, which I really loved, and that was, there's no learning in the comfort zone, and there's no comfort in the learning zone. We need a bit of itching powder to sort of
I wanted to
get somewhere.
I wanted to actually finish on the itching powder, Peter, because you mentioned this in our prep, that there's a Swedish word for itching powder, and it's like a catalyst of.
Yeah, I mean, when it sort of feels a bit like, oh, that's when something happens. Otherwise, you just sit back like a couch potato. Yeah. It's you need something. I mean, it shouldn't break your bones, but it should keep you awake a bit.
And it's, and I think that's quite often what we see with organizations, is that there's still this mentality that they want to maintain the way things are. And we kind of know that everything's changed, even though people aren't admitting it. And there needs to be an element of this corporate itching powder, whatever the Swedish term is for it.
Yeah, Nippon pulver. If you aim at keeping everything as it was, well, in this VUCA world of everything changing all over at the same time, you will end up standing in the dust, coughing, and wonder what the hell happened when everybody else moved ahead.
Yeah,
everything changes, and we just, the only decision we can, we have three things to choose about. One is be left behind. The other is let others decide our change, or let ourselves take control of our change ourselves.
Right.
That's the three choices we have, nothing else. And well, I go for the last one. I want to drive my change myself, and I like change.
Yeah, maybe it's because I've worked for organizations where they have a reorganization every year, that everything always ever changed. They just got used to it. I don't know, maybe that's the case. My parents work for government organizations, and they have quite a different outlook on jobs and change and stuff. But certainly, in the world today, 2021 is going to be different from 2020.
Yeah, and I think we've never seen such massive change happening at the same time. Both the speed and the sort of the breadth of what is changing, and also it's changing everywhere at the same time. You never know where the next thing will come from. It might be from Zanzibar or Budapest or Glasgow. You don't know.
Yeah,
it's happening all over at the same time with everything. And we just need to the only thing we can work on is ourselves.
Yes.
And therefore, let's go for it.
Let's get the itching powder.
Yeah.
Peter, it's been insightful. Thank you very much. The 20 minutes is up. I told you it goes really quickly.
Yes, it does.
Remind people
when you have a nice time.
Yeah, thank you. That's very kind of you. Remind everybody where they can get hold of you.
Yes. Think of Life of Brian. Look at the bright side of life. Bright side like a person who sees things from the bright side. .se, not .com. .se, because I'm in Sweden. Or Peter Bjellerup on LinkedIn. I'm happy to sort of interact with anybody.
Yeah, and Peter and I met on LinkedIn and had a discussion on LinkedIn, and I said, you need to come on here and talk about it. So here we are.
Yeah, really interesting.
So he's very social, so please do connect with him. Peter,
and by the way, talking about being social, I also appear as the social Swede, as if there was only one.
Yeah, so is that thesocialswede.com or
.com, and also on Twitter.
Right, okay. So look out for the Social Swede as well.
Yes.
Peter, thanks very much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very